So I'll go ahead and start the recording. All right. It's a great Saturday. Glad to have you all here on this Zoom-tacular. We'll be getting started here at 1 minute after the hour. And we're going to be kicking some things off here. We want to set the tone for today. And I think to that point, we want to share a little short video here that will set the tone as to what we're talking about. So, all right. Okay, we got more people there. So John, if you'll handle that part, I'll see if I can do this part.
Excellence must be pursued, it must be wooed with all of one's might and every bit of effort that we have. And each day there's a new encounter, each week is a new challenge. And all of the display and all of the noise and all of the glamour and all of the color and all of the excitement and all of the rings and all of the money, these are the things that really linger only in the memory. But the spirit, the will to excel, the will to win, these are the things that endure. The difference between men is not lack of strength, not lack of knowledge, but rather lack of will. But the new leadership is in sacrifice, it is in self-denial, it is in love, it is in loyalty, it is in fearlessness and humility, and it is in the perfectly disciplined will. This is not only the difference between men, this is the difference between great and little men. Thank you, John.
Welcome. Wow, it's not a Wednesday, it's Saturday. And thank you for all.
Did you know that people can steal your entire house from right underneath you?
Okay, we get back to this. All right. It's Saturday. Glad to have you all here. It's my pleasure to be hosting this call. My name is Keith Hooper, and you're at a right place at the right time. And you've heard that many times. Okay. But this is truly one of those very unique situations where you're going to hear from some interesting, inspiring, and people who have became famous in their world. And you owe that to you and your family as well as to be famous. And once again, my name is Keith Hooper. I'm here in Central California. It's my pleasure to be here. And I want to introduce my friend out of Dallas, Texas. Some of you know him as John Soliver. Some of you know him as John. But let me just give you a little more to this. There's more to this man. And, you know, in 1983, he was sitting in at his college graduation at Seton Hall. At that time, he had a different mindset, outlook on life. Go get a job, work for somebody else, make go in and do your 8 to 5, work 40 years, hope for a watch at the end of the time. But there was a speaker at that commencement exercise by the name of President Ronald Reagan. And as Reagan spoke to him, John talks about that during that time, he changed from a 8 to 5, work for somebody else and give them your soul and your life, to becoming an entrepreneur. And from there, that changed his life, that one moment in time. And that's what you're going to be getting here today, is those moments in time. John has gone on from that time of graduating. He'll share the story at some time with you about the mail Jeep and how that made such a big difference, and the lives that he has touched over that 39 years that he's been working here with this direct sales network marketing world. And so once again, pay close attention. There's a thing about being an old farm boy myself. When I grew up in a little town of 160 people, there you all go out and you want to track something, they leave tracks. Well, success leaves clues, success leaves tracks. And John has left a great track to follow. He's left a very clear path. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to my good friend and our leader for today, Mr. John Soller. Thank you for being here, John.
Well, wow. Thanks, Keith. And yeah, that mail Jeep, the only person, Keith, if you will continue admitting, I'll start talking. That mail Jeep story is really interesting because my sister's on the call and she probably remembers that wonderful blue mail Jeep bought at the Hackensack, New Jersey post office for $1,000, which was my vehicle to go to school with. Frankly, I wanted to go to school. I wanted an education. And when I was graduating, when I heard President Reagan speak, it inspired me to change my belief system, quite frankly. But let's go one step further. That mail Jeep story, because Keith brought it up, so I gotta tell you, because you're probably wondering what the heck he's talking about. This was a regular mail Jeep, like pulls up in front of your house every day and delivers your mail here in the United States and Canada. And it had a couple of problems with it. And Randy Gage is probably going to give me a hard time about this at some point, I'm sure. But it was an interesting vehicle because I never had a date in college because there was only one seat, the driver's seat. And the other thing next to you was the thing that held the mail. So anyway, when I got into direct selling business in April of 1983, graduated May 1983, heard President Reagan and changed my politics and my thought process that day. But when that happened, I took that mail Jeep and I took a negative and turned it into a positive. Okay. Yes, it was negative that I couldn't have a date. It was negative that it was ugly. And it was negative that it got really bad gas mileage, by the way. But I turned it to a positive because I built an organization with people in northern New Jersey and in southern New York State that were older than I was then. I was in my early 20s. And I started to go to Newark Airport and pick up their product for them. And I charged them a little bit of an extra fee to do so, but I would deliver it to their home, sometimes to a big shopping mall. We'd meet there. Anyway, long story short, that accelerated my organization's growth in that particular company. So I took a negative, made it a positive. My dear friend Foster Owusu will tell you that I have a statement that he uses of mine all the time, which is, we'll figure it out. Whatever the problem is, we'll figure it out. Now, let me make a quick comment about Coach Lombardi for a minute and why we started there. It's football season. That's a good enough reason for me. But more than that, if you think Vince Lombardi was only a football coach, then you're missing who the man really was. One of the most inspirational people of the last century. But Coach Lombardi, I want to give you just a fast story on how he was, because we all know him as the coach of the Green Bay Packers. However, what you don't know about Lombardi, unless you've studied the man, is he was actually a chemistry professor. And he taught at St. Cecilia High School in Englewood, New Jersey. And some of those nuns wound up working at a novitiate not too far from there that my late father worked at for a period of time. And he got to know some of the nuns. And my father would come home and share Lombardi stories with me when I was in high school. And one of those stories was that Vince Lombardi was just as serious about teaching chemistry to high school kids as he was coaching the Green Bay Packers. Now, why do I even say that? Because it's a life lesson. If you're listening to my voice right now, that life lesson is, whatever you do, do it to the best of your ability at all times. Whether you're coaching Little League or you're coaching in the National Football League. Whether you're teaching kids in a classroom or you're teaching people how to be entrepreneurs to change their life, change their future. Perfect segue for the gentleman I'm going to introduce. A man who's not only become a friend of mine in the last few months, and I use that term, I don't use that term loosely, friendship, because I believe this man and I have so much in common, not only because of our careers and everything that we've seen, but some of our common belief systems that we believe everyone on this call is capable of greatness in their business. Every single one of you. He's authored 14 books that have been translated in some 25 languages. He's mentored people all over the world in the field of network marketing. And he's also been a top distributor. He's a true renaissance man in this industry. And one of the things I love about this guy, he's a worker. If I text him at 6 a.m., he texts me back at 6:01. And if I text him at 10 o'clock at night, he texts me back at 10:01. Now, you may or may not quite be able to do that at this point, but if there's different things we're working on, he's always there and he's always on his game. He's dedicated to purpose. So I would introduce my good friend, somebody who has been a blessing in the short time he's been working with us here at Immunotech, Mr. Randy Gage. Randy, welcome to the call, my friend.
Hey. Well, thanks for having me on your Zoom-tastic Palooza-a-thon event.
Well,
Great to be with this crowd.
Now, hold on, Randy. Have you ever been on right after Vince Lombardi?
No, I'm the videos they're showing on the stages I'm on these days are more likely Tony Dungy or Jimmy Johnson. But as a guy who grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, born in 1959, and seeing Vince Lombardi win those Super Bowls and that, turned Green Bay into title town, I have a direct connection.
Great. Well, Randy, I got a few questions for you today. Are you ready?
You always do.
I always do. At 10 o'clock at night and at 6 in the morning. Doesn't really matter, right? So let's talk about some of the things that we shouldn't do. And then, of course, segue more importantly to the things that we should do to build a dynamic business here with Immunotech Research. So however you want to handle this, let's talk about making income testimonials.
Yeah, interesting thing. I got a message from legal and compliance. They said, hey, we're thinking about creating a video on how you can do income testimonials. And my advice to them is, you can't do that because there is no way to do income testimonials anymore. It's like trying to say, hey, we want to make a video on how you can rob a bank legally. No, it doesn't work. There's no legal way to rob the bank. It's illegal to rob banks. That's stealing. It's a bad thing. We send people to prison for that, right? So what has happened in the United States, and quickly kind of morphing around all the other countries in the world, is they're saying, hey, there is no income testimonials allowed. Even though you say, hey, these results are not typical, or not everybody does this, your own results may vary. No, if you say, I make $10,000 a month, it's over the line. If you say $2,000 a month, it's over the line. If you say, hey, I made $892 my first month, it's over the line. We have to find a better way to recruit, because that option is no longer possible. And there are greater options. There's plenty of things we could do, because if you really get down to the marketing essence of it, nobody cares how much money you've made. What they want to know is, what is the potential for me in this business? And the other thing you'll notice is, as the generation philosophies have changed, we're attracting a lot of people into the profession that aren't interested in making $100,000 a month. They want to do a business with meaning, that they believe they have contribution, that they're making the world a better place, that they're becoming successful by empowering other people. And those are the aspects of the business that I think we need to be sharing today.
And I know the answer to this, but just for everybody else's clarification, let's discuss it for a minute because we need to, I guess. And that's disease claims and irrational health claims.
Yeah, the situation here is pretty much the same as the income thing. There is no way to do a disease testimonial anymore that's acceptable to the regulatory agencies. If you are mentioning any disease by name, and it doesn't matter, I know legal talked to me this week because we had people that were doing a weekly testimonial thing, and they thought, well, we always start with this disclaimer and we say, hey, what you're about to hear has not been approved by the FDA. These are not health claims. This is not meant to say this product cures any disease. That doesn't give you any latitude at all. The FDA and the FTC, they ain't buying that dog. That dog don't hunt. They ain't buying that bridge. Let me get my cliches straight, right? You just got to stop doing it. You just have to stop doing it. And again, look at the alternative of, because again, people aren't really saying, well, let me go look at this Facebook Live presentation to see what disease some person feels that they cured with health products. Most people are looking for, hey, how can I get more energy? How can I live longer? How can I have a better quality of life? How can I make sure that my body stays up with my mind? The ancient Chinese emperors, the reason they hired all those healers and physicians and doctors around them is they wanted to die young at an advanced age. And I just feel like that's kind of the philosophy that Immunotech consultants should have, that, hey, I want to die young at an advanced age. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to naturally biohack my immunity. I'm going to feed my body. You know, we got Dr. Jim, he's going to be on the call today. How many times have you heard him say, when he's talking about Immunical, he says, this is food for the immune system, right? That's the whole point of Immunotech is, hey, nourish your body naturally and allow your body to do the work. So when you say that, you're in great shape. When you say, well, I had cancer, AIDS, spinal meningitis, bubonic plague, Ebola, rheumatoid arthritis, whatever. And I took some of these products and then I went to the doctor and they said, wow, everything is, you just can't do it. Where the regulatory environment isn't going to allow it. And we have to, I think everybody in this call, you probably got teams in other places, and you might say, well, yeah, but I got a team in the Dominican and they don't really care about that. Or I have a team in Mexico and the authorities are much more lenient there. I promise you it won't wash, because anything you say in a Spanish marketing material in Mexico is going to get used by your Spanish team in Texas and Miami and California. Anything that you do in your French team in Quebec is going to get used in Europe, or Europe is going to get used in Quebec, right? And you just have to realize, no, because what happens when the regulators come in and seize a place, and John, you know this because you and I have very dear friends who have all lived through this, where there's just, people go to the office at 9 a.m. and all of a sudden a bunch of men with windbreakers and guns come in and tell everybody, stand up, move away from your computers, put your phones down, don't move. They impound all the computers, they impound all the phones, they seize the bank accounts, they have a restraining order from the judge, and they say, we're locking your warehouse, you're not going to be able to ship products, you're not going to be able to take orders. And that happens worldwide. John and I both know BK over at Vema, and he called me the day it happened to Vema. And it's like, I have product rotting in warehouses. I have overseas bank accounts in Europe that I can't even access. I can't pay my payroll. I can't pay my suppliers. My hands are completely tied. So there's no boundaries that protect us here, and I'm not a distributor. You guys are all consultants. I'm the outside guy, the objective third-party guy who says, listen, let me, I believe in what you're doing, but I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm going to tell you the truth, how it happens in the real world. And in the real world, you got to protect the golden goose. The golden goose is your company that ships that product every day. Those 10 million packets a month, right? It's your golden goose is the company that pays those commissions on time every month for 25 years now. And the regulatory environment has changed, and you're all going to have to change. And you can hate me and beat me up, and you can buy Randy Gage voodoo dolls and stick pins in them, but it isn't going to change the reality of reality.
Well, now we've covered the bad news. Now the good news is, and it's a perfect segue about my old blue Jeep, okay, that you take a negative and you turn it to a positive. So if that's the regulatory environment, it is what it is. We can't, that old deal, you can't fight City Hall. Randy, I know you've got a tremendous solution that you shared a little bit of with myself and a few of the other senior members of the team. Talk about a little bit of that solution to present this in a manner that will be nice and clean, and more importantly, probably get even better results in terms of getting folks to say, hey, I either just want to try the products as a customer, which is fine. We love customers, right? A lot of good customers become good distributors. That's how we got here. My mother was one of the first customers of this product. We eventually became distributors, and I think we did an okay job building a business. So talk about that, Randy. What's the solution that you've come up with that we've seen a little bit of? If you wouldn't mind sharing what you can today about what's going to be at Immunifest that they're going to see, and more importantly, be able to capitalize on to grow the heck out of their business in 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, my job is to be the advocate for the field, because that's where I come from. I'm a field leader like you guys. So when Mauricio brought me in and brought in Jaime, he brought us in to create marketing materials that would be effective for you guys to help you grow your business. And so I'm going to take everything I know about Magistral, and I'm going to write, here's how I would sell this product if I was a distributor. Here's how I would market it. Because I don't really believe in selling and closing techniques. I never want to mess with that stuff. I believe the most successful people in our business, I believe we don't close people, we open them. So if you learn all these closing techniques, the reduce to the ridiculous close and NLP techniques and all that, okay, you're gonna sell a lot of starter kits, but you're not really gonna duplicate, because most people don't know how to sell, are afraid to sell, and don't want to know how to sell. But if you can show them how to be a marketer and how to educate their candidates and say, hey, let me give you the information here, you evaluate it and make the right decision for you. If you like to be a customer, we'd love to have you as a customer. We've got a preferred customer program. You can order direct, and the company's going to take care of you, and I'm going to be your personal ambassador. And if you'd like to build a business, become a consultant, I'm going to be your partner with that and help you every step of the way. So let me give you all this information, and then you can decide what's the best approach for you. And it's the same thing, whether you're talking about Magistral, Immunical, or ProBio. It's like, okay, let me give you the information. What's in this product? What does it do? What will it mean to you if you consume this product? And then you decide, would you like to consume this product, or you just want to keep drinking 12 Diet Pepsis every day for the rest of your life until you get diabetes and they're amputating one of your legs and you're taking 15 prescriptions a day, and the typical American, Canadian, first world health outcomes that we're seeing these days from people who don't eat and drink healthy. Right. So what I do, I look at a product like Magistral and say, okay, let me see all this good stuff. Okay, so here's how I would write it all out. the very first thing I do next is send it to Dr. Jimmy and say, hey, Dr. Jimmy, I'm working on some copy for the product catalog, and here's what I want to say about Magistrel. And Jimmy's going to say, hey, okay, that's good, but you know what? This third line, no, we don't really have science that supports that. You need to take that out. Or, hey, you called this thing protein, but it's actually a biomolecule, or and he's going to make sure it's right from a scientific standpoint. Then I'm going to send it to Topeka and legal and Julie in compliance, and they're going to say, oh no, in Colombia the government doesn't let, in Canada the government doesn't let us, in the US we can say this but we can't say that. And then I'm going to push back and say, come on, we need to sell this stuff, you got to let me say stuff here, right? And they're like, listen, and then, hey, Mao, I need your help in here. Julie's telling me I can't say this. She's being mean to me. I need your help. And he's going to say, Julie, come on, work with Randy. How much are, because what is the point of having 85 clinical studies if they're just in the drawer of Dr. Jimmy's desk, right? What is the point of having 78 patents? What is the point of working with 125 universities and institutions if we can't say some benefits for these products? So this is a long segue to the answer of your question, John, which is, so we're creating a what we call a magalog, which means a catalog that's designed like a magazine, to have shelf life, a magazine that people would want to read that has helpful health and wellness information. And this magalog is called the title of it is Super Immunity. And it's the wellness journal from Immunotech Research. And that's what's going to be one of the products that's going to be introduced, and a sales tool introduced at Immunifest, at the conventions. We've got a new edition of the It's Your Turn video. We incorporated the new product, which is going to be launched at that event, which is, I think, the biggest advance in immunotech science in probably the last 10 years, based on, and being a beta tester who's using that product, by the way, with personal firsthand experience. And it also includes a really cool new endeavor the company is doing that people are going to be really excited about. We've incorporated some new testimonials, and the video is 5 seconds shorter than the current version because we edited it with a scalpel, right, to get just the most meaty content. Some new great video testimonials from the Olympic athletes, Kate French, who was a gold medalist in Tokyo, right? We got a great new clip from her talking about Immunical and where she makes it in her berry smoothie and with her juice. And I mean, it's amazing. So we're creating these tools so you don't have to make those product claims. You can just use those tools. So you're completely duplicable. Anyone who joins your team can get the same results as you. You don't have any worries about the legal issue because all of the language has been vetted by Dr. Jimmy, by Julie, by Topeka, the whole corporate staff. And it's effective from a marketing standpoint. So we're just constantly on the quest of creating new marketing materials that will show the real tangible benefits of the product. And we're doing it all without any illegal income or disease testimonials. And I'm telling you, they're going to be really effective.
Great. And they'll be able to get these after the Mexico convention or the Dallas convention?
The LATAM people will be able to get them in LATAM. The gringos in North America like me won't get them until the North America convention, because I mean, if you guys knew behind the scenes what I'm putting Christian and the marketing team through, they're all working 18-hour a day. So they're literally like, okay, we're going to do the Spanish version of the Magalog first, because that's the first convention. And I mean, we're literally lining up so that like the printing trucks are leaving the production facility at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. on Friday of the convention and having it to the loading dock at the thing at 10 a.m. so we can be announcing it from the stage at noon. I mean, it's that kind of timeline. And so we're getting the Spanish, and sometimes we don't even have all the Spanish versions. Like there's going to be people at the LATAM convention who are going to be heartbroken because we're going to say, hey, we have the Magalog for Mexico, but we don't have the one for Colombia, or we don't have the one for the DR, because remember, not all countries have the same product mix. So there's, I think we have 8 different Spanish versions of the Magalog. So, you know, and then we lose the economy of scale. We can't print 5 million of them all in Spanish because we need a special print run for Colombia, a special print run for Ecuador, or whatever the case may be.
Wow. Well, you know, Randy, I've seen some of what you put together that you've shared with me that, of course, I haven't shared with anybody. But I got to tell you, folks, these are the type of tools that will duplicate the business time and time again, not only here in the United States and Canada, but throughout the world. And that's what we want, right? We want a global enterprise. We want a business that when you're asleep in Fort Myers, Florida, where I see Dina rationally taking notes there. When she's asleep, she wants her business in England to be fired up. She's going to want her business eventually in Asia to be fired up. And that's what happens when you get the tools culture right. Randy, last question for you, my friend. Okay, let's talk about the tools culture for a second, because that's a little bit of a new terminology for a lot of our distributors here on this call today and others that aren't with us, okay? When those tools happen and they duplicate, and you've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen in other companies, when all of a sudden it's like, wow, your downline goes from X to X plus almost, and you didn't do anything on a personal level. You just did what you did all the time. You did your normal stuff, your normal Zoom calls these days, right? Talk about that for a minute, because I think that's something to really get excited and passionate about what's coming up here. You shared some of it, but what happens when that fire starts to happen, that firestorm where people accepting and knowing how to use tools to automate their business and systematize their business?
Yeah, the thing I want to convey to you guys is what it feels like to wake up, do your cardio, get your orange juice, go out and sit on your patio, brew your green tea or whatever, your coffee in the morning, and you fire up your laptop. You look at the messages that came in overnight from those people who are building while you were sleeping, as you just referenced, and look in your back office and find out you have 1,000 people who joined your team in the last 24 hours. And then the next day, have 1,000 people who joined your team. And the next day, 1,000 people who joined. So my all-time world record was waking up to find 4,000 new people had joined my team in the last 24 hours, and doing that for a period of 4.5 months, literally every day, 7 days a week, Sunday, Monday, holiday, whatever, 4,000 new people. And I don't mean people who joined and didn't buy anything, or I'm talking about people who purchased a distributor kit and made an initial product order. 4,000 people a day. So much so for 4.5 months. You know, when everybody talks about exponential growth, when you get that hockey stick curve of the, you know, everybody talks about that. Most people have not ever been a part of it. I've been a part of it 2 times. I know exactly what that hockey stick looks like. And I know exactly what it does to the companies when you're adding 4,000 new people a day, and you're like, you can't, average company has 6 weeks worth of product at current level. So you start adding 4,000 people a day, you're talking about 100,000 plus new customers a month. Nobody has that kind of inventory on time. You can't build factories fast enough. You can't hire employees fast enough. You can't train new people fast enough, right? So if you haven't prepared in advance, if you haven't invested in advance for that kind of growth, it collapses. And that's what happened. I had people who had joined in January, didn't have product, get their credit cards dinged for their auto ship in February, still didn't have the January product, get their credit card dinged for their auto ship order in March, still didn't have the January product. And by April, they're quitting because it's like, these people charge my credit card every month and they never send me any product. Why would I, I have to be insane to keep doing this, right? I've been through that, right? I've seen it handled right one time, and I've seen it blow up another time. So if you wonder why are Jaime and I so enamored with Mauricio Domensain, that's why. Because we have seen he knows how to run a company. Brant Wallace, the CFO. I mean, I say, hey guys, we need to put a new copy of the Magalog in every new welcome kit. That's all I think about, right? Hey, we're gonna have this new tool. Let's make sure there's one in every welcome kit. Then the messages start from Brant. Okay, Jonathan, have we done a cost analysis on this in all of the countries? How much is the printing cost? What is the unit cost? Because if you add 100,000 distributors in a year and you add $2 to the cost, it's 200, do the math, how much money. So they're like, they understand cash flow. They understand logistics. They understand inventory forecasting, right? So that's why Jaime and I are so impressed by Mauricio and the corporate team, because they have put all this stuff in place, which we've seen hasn't in place. But for you guys in this room, you don't have to worry about any of that. I just want you to experience what it means to wake up overnight, pull up your back office and see dozens and then hundreds, and in some cases, even thousands of people who have joined your team, your organization overnight. Because of the tools. At some point, if Dina can become the foremost glutathione expert in Fort Myers, Florida, ain't never going to duplicate, right? And plus, Dr. Jimmy's on here, okay? Dr. Jimmy is the foremost glutathione expert in the world. Stop trying to take his job away from him. You're taking food out of his mouth, okay? His book is in the 5th printing. This is what the scientists read. This is what the doctors read, okay? He is the preeminent glutathione expert in the entire Milky Way galaxy. So stop trying to compete with him. You got him there. He's already here. He's in the room today, right now, okay? You don't have to be the glutathione expert. He contributes to the bigger picture of creating these tools, which you can use that keep you out of the ditches. And that's where duplication lives.
Great. Well, Randy, this has been tremendous. Thank you so much. And we got a lot to look forward to, folks. And listen, one of the things, and Randy and I talk about it all the time, is we love where Immunotech is at. But we see where Immunotech can be, and the type of tools and guidance that Randy and Jaime are contributing are helping that process for each and every one of us. So once again, Randy, on behalf of all the group here, thanks so much. And stick around if you can, because not only we're going to hear from Dr. Jimmy shortly, but we've got some cameos of some people, and you know this with all your experience, but everybody else here doesn't. The couple of people you're going to meet now, and you're going to meet some others later in the day, are people who have been in Immunotech for more than 23 years. The least amount of time you're going to hear from anybody who talks right now or later this afternoon is 23 years. That's a novel thing in network marketing. There's only a handful of distributors in any company, the older companies, the Herbalifes, the Shakleys, the New Skins, the Melaleucas, the Amways, etc., that have that 24, 25 years of experience. We have that at Immunotech, and some of those folks are here today and they're actually joining us. So I want to just go over to Sandy Walper. She's floating around Arizona because she doesn't, I don't know what, Randy, why she doesn't like the weather in Alberta this time of year. She went to Arizona for the weekend. I can't imagine why. Sandy Walper, where are you? Say hello. Tell your story quickly if you can, my friend.
Hey, John, can everybody hear and see me?
We sure can. How you doing, kid? I'm
doing great. And yeah, it is pretty sunny in Arizona, and it's nice to get out of minus 52. So I'm Sandy Walper, and I've been in the company. I'm in my 26th year. And I have to tell you, Randy's talk was very, very awesome. And when I say awesome, because he hit on a lot of points that we didn't have when we started this company. We didn't have the tools that there currently is today in order to achieve the goals back then that we needed to achieve. Although we achieved them the hard way. It was hard work. We were in the trenches 24/7, creating our own tools, telling a story. But what I want to tell everybody is that for the last 25 years, Immunotech has given me one heck of a platform in order to build my future. And I decided to build my future on my own, by myself, with my husband and my family. And we did it from a little farm, and my closest neighbor was 9 miles away. And I did it from a party line phone. We had no cell phone. We had no fax machine. We had nothing. And so today the tools are so incredible. And, you know, Immunotech has been my life, my lifestyle. And, you know, good things always come around, because when I started Immunotech, I knew about McGill University, but I never ever thought that coming from a low income family raised in a lower neighborhood in Calgary, Alberta, that my kids would ever have an opportunity, not only to go to McGill University, but to get all of their master's degrees. And I had Jimmy beside me the whole time saying, Sandy, I'll talk to your kids, keep them going, keep them going. So the encouragement that you got from being part of this Immunotech family, and the fact that Immunotech gave me a platform where I could put my kids through university and they could all have master's degrees and be able to pay for it and come out of university with no debt and give them wings to fly. And today the kids not only have wings to fly, John, but they all have an Immunotech check over 6 figures. And we created that years and years ago. So what a heck of an insurance policy that is. And Randy, I love what you're doing with your duplication thing. And my hat is off to you. I told Chuck when I started, I said, Chuck, can you do 2 things for me? Can you send my product on time? And can you put my check in the bank on time? And I'll do the rest. Because what happened in Immunotech was totally up to me. I was at the top of the line, so it was sink or swim. And I decided to swim. And I swam uphill. And it was an uphill battle, but never give up, you guys, because the best in Immunotech is yet to come. And we've got the best people on board to help all the new people. I mean, the tools are just incredible, John. And of course, you know, the joke, we've got the general out there, Foster, and you're my network marketing husband. And now we've got Randy and Jaime, and the whole team has just been doing an incredible job. So I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day on a Saturday afternoon. I think I'm crazy. Because actually the sun is shining and it's 80 degrees out there, and I'm on a golf course, and I should be on the golf course. But you know what? You're important, and Immunotech is important. So thank you very much for listening to me, and move forward. Never quit. Never give up. Keep walking up that hill, because you can't get up the hill until you start walking. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Sandy. And I know Doug LeClaire is with us from Ontario, where I think they got a little bit of snow in the last couple of days. Doug, how are you?
We're doing awesome, John. Thanks for inviting me out. Yeah, we got hit with 40 centimeters in one blast, and it went right over the snowblower. So crazy. But I'm in a warm spot here now, and I'm willing to share a little bit of what really impressed me about Immunotech and Immunical over the past, well, it hasn't been quite 23 years. It took me 1 year of research, reading every frickin' study and everything before I decided to become a customer. So I've been well aware of this company for 23 years. Yeah, so I'm really impressed with what Maurizio's been doing. And, you know, starting 22 years, almost 22 full years, I had no idea how important my decision was back then, and what it means to me today. Because you never know what's going to happen in life. You never know. I was working as an engineer. My time was not my own. I was working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a day. Every once in a while, 7 o'clock at night, get a call from the company. We need you to be in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I'm going, it wasn't Harrisburg anymore. I called it Harassmentburg because it seemed to always upset my plans. So, you know, setting the alarm clock, getting up first thing in the morning, blasting through, and then running in, getting out into the highway, and dead stop. Now I'm stuck in 1.5 hours of traffic. And, you know, I just got really tired of all that. And, you know, I was just fortunate that a friend of mine came by, Foster Owusu, with some information about a company, about a product. He knew I was interested in health. And since that time, I've been able to get paid every single month for 22 years. And with what's happened a couple of years ago, and that it's my plan B is now, you know, your plan A. I wake up when I'm finished sleeping. So that's a bonus. I choose when to go out in the highway. I can wait for the rush of the crowds. I choose when I can do my shopping. I just had a talk with a friend of mine this morning. He said, oh, the lineups at Costco and that, you know, you line up 20 fit. I said, I've never been in a lineup with Costco. I go Monday morning. Everybody's done. So just the energy now and the spirit of Immunotech, the spirit of the family, Maurizio's brought to the company. And Randy, oh my goodness, I am so grateful to have you really putting your wisdom and your input into this. I ate up all of your content as just getting started and learning this business. So yeah, grateful for everybody. And thanks for having me out. Sandy, love your stories, love your family story and what you've done to provide such a huge income for them, and also just a wonderful education. So too many people to thank. Everybody on the call today, I've had connections and discussions with every single one of them. Big hug to everybody, blessings, and look forward to learning a lot more on this call this afternoon. Thanks, John.
Thanks so much, Doug. And hey, the elder one of the elder statesmen, I should say, of Immunotech, Mr. Wally Kralik is with us as well. And where are you, Wally? Say hello.
Hey, John. Hello. I might be getting older, but I'm not going to get old. Okay. So Immunotech, of course, has made that much of a difference in my life from the standpoint of aging. It's dramatically slowed the aging process down. I'm really grateful for that. John, basically, you want to know a little bit about my background, why I got into this program. I'm addicted to freedom. That was, I cannot see myself ever having to listen to somebody else to tell me what to do, when to do, how to do it. So I've always, wanted to do my own thing. I mean, we were immigrants, and my dad, when we came to Canada, he worked 3 jobs, worked his buns off. He never had a lifestyle. He never had freedom. And, I watched him persevere through all that tragedy and hard work and ups and downs that he went through. And until he got his own business, that's when life dramatically changed. So that's kind of embedded in me. The only way for me to enjoy the kind of lifestyle that I want, to create the income that I want, is to be my own boss. So I became an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. I've opened and closed at least 25 businesses. I think I could make a living just doing a consulting for people that are interested in starting a business, what you should do, how you should go about it, what you need to know. And of course, I've made a lot of money and I lost a lot of money. And time is a big area, a big concern for me. You know, when I had all those traditional businesses, I worked 80, 90, 100 hours a week. I worked like a maniac. I rarely saw my first two kids because I was always working. So anyway, that said, I ran into trouble a number of years ago, and I lost about $4 million. And I started to recognize or understand, like, what do I do next? You know, when you don't have any money, how do you start another business? That's when I came across this networking industry. Didn't believe in it, didn't understand it, never even heard of Amway. So I was a real newbie, but I started. I was with another company at the beginning just to get my feet wet. Never made any money for quite some time, and then I made the switch when you and Piero decided to switch. I went with you guys, and my life dramatically changed. I knew what I wanted in a network marketing business. I had to have a product that I was in love with, and I had to have a company that would allow me to create a legacy income, which I've been able to do. You know, 20 odd years later, I've built a very serious income, something that I can pass on to my boys and to the family. Have had an unbelievable lifestyle, you know, as Sandy and has alluded to. I mean, it's what Immunotech has done for people like myself and Sandy and Doug and yourself and Spencer, Foster. I mean, the lifestyle is just amazing. Being your own boss, doing what you want to do. I love when Doug had mentioned, you know, wake up when you're finished sleeping. You know, that's an amazing lifestyle, and I look forward to what Randy said. You know, get to a point where I wake up in the morning, there's 1,000 new people in my organization. I'm looking forward to that. I want to be part of that. I want to make a huge difference for all the people on the planet that are interested in health, income, and make a huge difference in the world. So back to you, John.
Great. Thanks, Wally. And hey, guys, I forgot one thing when we were talking with Randy on my podcast, leavingnothingtochance.com. Most of you are familiar with it. If you're not, make a note of it. Leavingnothingtochance.com. Tuesday, Randy is my special guest. So if you like what you heard today, you'll hear a lot more of it from Randy on Tuesday. So make a note of that. Well, most of you are familiar with the show, but if you're not, maybe you can put it in here and somebody can answer it and type it out for you. Keith, if you could do that. Because I now have to introduce my sister. And she's more than my sister. She's not here because she's my sister. Matter of fact, it took me the better part of 20 years to get her to really see this product. And she is a medical professional. She's in the medical field, the public health arena, has a wall full of degrees that I won't bore you with what they all are, but she's got them, and she's been a student forever, and is a student, a passionate student of public health, and also her own health. And she was on a health journey. She had an injury 2 summers ago now, wound up breaking a number of bones in her body. And when she was in the hospital, I gave her a Vince Lombardi talk with a few expletives that I can't use on a nice call like this, but a few words that we use in New Jersey as adjectives. But anyway, and I said, one of them is, you're going to get on this blankly blank product and take it serious, because I'm tired of giving it to you and it takes you 6 months to tell me you need more. And she did. And she had a result. And because she had a result, she started to build a little business with us. And then, of course, she met her 2 new friends and colleagues, and they like her better than me. I'm jealous. I've been working with John and Jimmy for 25 years, and they both tell me, we love working with your sister. They never say they love working with me. I feel so left out. But anyway, Nancy, I am going to turn it over to you and let you do your magic with Dr. Jimmy and John. So Dr. Cellini, welcome to the call.
All right. Thank you, John, for that lovely welcome, and happy January to everybody, and 2022. I'm always privileged to be here. And today I am going to be joined by John Mulson and Dr. James Gutman, Jimmy Gutman. Randy already kind of stole the thunder on Dr. Gutman. I'm sure you all know Dr. Gutman's really prestigious background from his professorship at McGill University, his background in emergency medicine, his teaching, his board participation, his organization of medical conferences worldwide. He is the leading expert on glutathione, and we are all so lucky to have him in our midst. and to be able to tap into his knowledge when we need him and when we need the doctor scientist who really is the true ultimate authority on this product. But we're also joined with another unbelievable mind and human being in John Mulson, who is the co-founder of Immunotech, 7th generation from the Mulson family up there in Canada, the oldest brewery. John was VP of Research and Development. I'm sure you all know his background, but what is exceptional about John is the proximity he had to Dr. Bonus, to Dr. Droge. I can tell you from my own humble experience in medicine and healthcare that to work beside people who made these discoveries and are just tireless, humble, really servants to what they do in terms of medicine and healthcare and helping others, that's irreplaceable. So you have this dynamic duo today that I get to work with to bring you our health segment. And that was my my deal with my brother, just so you all know. I said, sure, I'll come, but I can't talk about sales and marketing. I know but a thimbleful worth of information on that front. I do know that when I'm passionate about something, and I am passionate about public health and medicine and healthcare and what we call today integrative types of approaches to health. So my deal with John and Keith was I would only do this if I got to work with these two outstanding minds and gentle people and scholars. So we've been doing these. Keith, I added it up. I think this is about our 14th health talk. We started them towards the end of 2020. And these are designed to give you all another little bit of insight. That's really what it is, to get your minds working around the commentary from John and Dr. Gutman, and to put that in your arsenal for your dialogues with people. This is not meant to make anybody a doctor or scientist. That is not what we're trying to do. That takes years and a lot of other stuff, but we can give you some other pieces of information that I think are tremendously valuable when we're talking about people's health. And what I'm going to do is share my screen right now. We have a couple slides. Keith Hooper, please, if I forget to unshare my screen, I'll probably share it and go in and out a little bit today because we do have our three speakers and I'm going to kick us off. But here's the topic, and I hope you're chuckling over this opening slide because it's meant to be funny. We're all in pursuit of health. And I think that's the customer. That's my customer for Immunical. Someone who said, you know, I want to change up my game. I want to do things a little differently. I am concerned about my relationship with food and my body and supplements and exercise. So I think we're all in pursuit of health. And what I wanted to do today was frame my interview with John Mulson. I have some really key questions I want to ask John about physical activity. And then that's going to cue us up. We're going to have a little segue, which is why I probably will go back and forth with the slides a little bit, because there's a very interesting study that we'll put in between John's interview and Dr. Gutman's brilliant talk on epigenetics. And if you don't know what epigenetics are, you're going to learn about it today from Dr. Gutman so that you don't have to go out and try to invent language around it. He's going to give you some key thoughts there. So let's start with this. Really, what is the definition of health? When someone says, I want to be healthy, what does it mean? And I can tell you there's been many backroom discussions that have gotten rather heated about this very topic in the public health world, because the way the WHO defines it, right, and that's the World Health Organization, is as a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So let me translate. That means that you can be kind of this perfect physical specimen, per se, but you may not be healthy necessarily, okay? One of the limiting factors here is saying, you know, it's this complete physical, mental, social well-being. How do we achieve that? Think about that statement. That's a whopper of a statement. that, hey, and even when you are disease-free, you may not have all those ingredients. You may not be as well as you could be in that context. And context is, again, what we hope to give you in these little health segments that we get to do on the monthly calls. Mental health recently was added as part of this definition. And I think we would all agree, with everything we've been living through with this pandemic and all the stress, that's a really important ingredient in looking at someone's health picture. Now, factors that can influence health, oh my goodness, this becomes so complicated. It is not merely eating right, sleeping well, taking your supplements, and maybe doing your meditation work every day. If it were that simple, then we would all be able to achieve this WHO definition of health. And the fact is, we don't always develop, or we don't always share this same health status. Let me pose a question to you all, because I have found this in some of the customers that I've dealt with. Is spending more money going to be guaranteeing us better outcomes? And I will tell you again that in various circles of healthcare and medicine, for a while there was this belief that if we throw money at something, it will go away, it will get better. Well, that's simply not true. And it's so not true because the data supports this from 1980, as you can see on this chart, until this was the last reported data in 2019, but we actually have some updated data on it. The United States, and I'll pick on the United States because I am from here and I am a proud American, but when it comes to healthcare and how we rank with other parts of the world, we are not the top performing healthcare system. And there's lots of reasons for it. Inpatient care, hospital care, and administrative care takes a large chunk of the American dollar every year. So much so is that in 2019, it was 16.8% of our total gross domestic product. Why is that significant? And why is it even more significant that the projections are well into 20% of our GDP in the coming next 5 or 6 years? Why is that alarming? Well, I'll tell you why. It's not necessarily the amount we're spending, but it's the outcomes we have. And why do we have some of the poorest outcomes in health? The actual, and Randy Gage mentioned outcomes earlier, so I think it's an important part of our dialogue. There's, again, a myriad of reasons behind this. But one of the things that I absolutely adore about our Dr. Gutman, and I'll brag about him just for another moment, because I love to do that, is that he wants to bridge traditional medicine with complementary. And that's really important because maybe just going to the doctor, having surgery, getting prescription drugs is not the answer to better health. So here's the question: does spending more mean you're going to get more? The dead right answer is no, absolutely not. And again, these are just a few statistics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I hope you'll trust in me and trust more so in the data that's now been collected over several decades by numerous health watch groups and health authorities. We rank last on our overall health outcomes, but we spend the most. We spend the most per capita. We have a very high infant mortality rate. We have one of the lowest life expectancies at age 60. That means how many people are living beyond that age. Our rate of preventable mortality is not as good as it could be, and our maternal health and the rate of live births versus infant mortality still ranks close to dead last. So with all that said, why? Well, in a previous health talk, if you were listening, we talked about this complexity of factors, and this is going to be important with John in a moment. I'm going to switch over to him for an interview on physical activity with John Mulson. But the answer rests in this very complicated tapestry, if you will, of determinants of health. You can be affected by where you've been born, where you work, where you live, your social cohesion, how many friends you have, where your family is, the amount of healthcare services. So when you look at the graphic here, and it's got that big outer circle of general socioeconomic, cultural, and environmental conditions, being healthy simply isn't an easy or slam dunk kind of conversation. There's a lot of factors that go into being healthy. And we're going to talk about one of them right now with one of my, as I said, favorite colleagues, John Mulson. So I'm going to cut away from the slides for a moment. And John and I are going to talk about physical activity. And before I close out of the slides for a moment, John said something to me in a recent discussion about talent sets the floor, but attitude is the ceiling. And John, I'd like to welcome you now to our Health Talk and find you on my screen. Where are you, John Mulson?
You see me?
Thank you. I see you now. Hi there.
Hey.
It's cold up there today, eh?
And I definitely like you a lot better than John.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. John, welcome to this Health Talk.
Thank you.
I know you have a lot to bring on this topic, and with the context that I've established, right? Because we know that there's all these other conditions that may bias someone, right, to the types of physical activity that they're able to do. We know that inner city youth sometimes have a real struggle. They don't have the green pastures to go run in and play in necessarily. But please talk to our group about some things they can kind of package up and take away from you today, as you're always so adept at doing. Talk to us about this role of physical activity in bettering one's health. How do you talk to people yourself about
a couple of
activity?
points? As you said, I had the unique opportunity to work with Dr. Bunos and Dr. Droog. And Dr. Droog was a world expert in many fields, including the field of aging. And he said to me, the number one anti-aging strategy I know is physical activity. Second point I want to make, when my son was in college, preparing for the draft and the NFL, I said, I want you to frame your decision-making like this. I want to turn it into a binary decision. So think of the health continuum as an east-west line. And so on the west side, because that's where the sun sets, we'll call that optimal health. On the east side, we'll call that very poor health. I said, in terms of being an athlete and an NFL player, I said, when you wake up every morning, I want you to think of your decision-making like this. Every decision you're looking at, does it take you closer to your goal of being an NFL kicker, or does it take you away? So, when I talk to people about health and fitness, I can speak to them all I want. I can give them all these strategies, but that slide that talks about talent and attitude, we all have talent. We're all human beings. Some of us are not Patrick Mahomes and will never be Patrick Mahomes for genetic and environmental reasons, but we can have the same attitude as Patrick Mahomes. Randy and John talk about attitude, and attitude is free. It's not something that costs you anything. And this is something that, I've seen in great athletes with mediocre talent, but incredible attitudes that, have surpassed all expectations, and incredible athletes with poor attitudes that never go anywhere. So vis-a-vis health, if you really want to be the best version of, quote unquote, an immunotech entrepreneur, you've got to pay attention to this. You've got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And so, being informed about what healthy means, the impact of our products vis-a-vis health, and generate that when you're going out and meeting with people. The third point is, there's a scientific article that I referred to, that says that we're born in the space age, but we're hardwired for the Stone Age. So the great problem that society is facing today is, for any number of reasons, a lack of physical activity or reduced levels of physical activity and excessive amounts of food and the wrong types of food. And what you have to think of, you've got to think of health as a continuum, because the reason we're still here after all these years is we adapt. What I didn't appreciate until I started working in the scientific field and speaking with Dr. Bunus and Dr. Droog, Dr. Gutman, is that we adapt both ways. We adapt as an athlete. I adapted from my training to win races. But when I was injured and I couldn't move properly, I lost strength and I lost fitness. And the same thing happens to the sedentary person, is you're adapting the wrong way. And the consequences of that are really well known in terms of all the risks. But the consequences going the other way are also very well known. So it all comes down to which way are you going to move on the continuum, both for yourself, for your family, but also when you go and meet prospective people. I mean, you want to personify what that means to people.
That is such a valuable idea that you've put out there, John, the health continuum. And I will tell you why we always tend to do a mind meld. Public health talks about that as health over the life course, right? So we know also that we're born with that, supply of health, and it may deteriorate over time. We did the health bank talk together. Looking at this in the framework that you've just given to all of us, right? If you're an Olympic athlete, obviously that continuum may look a little different. What about all the rest of us? What's the kind of advice, or how would you help people place themselves on that continuum, right? I would do it by looking at their age, their overall health, again, lifespan, life course. But how would you help your everyday person think about where they are?
The biggest mistake I made, again, through ignorance, because I made every mistake in the book, and because I made every mistake in the book growing up, I was able to help my son achieve where he is today. The biggest mistake I made, and you look at NFL athletes, you look at hockey players, the amount of time these people spend on their spine, their mobility, that's the biggest mistake I made. I mean, my whole goal when I was young was to be the fastest runner over a long distance, to be the best cyclist. I never paid attention to my spine. So, you can have all the power in the world, but if your spine doesn't work properly, you can't deliver that power. You look at older people that play tennis and golf, instead of using their hips, they're playing with their back and their arms because their spine is not working properly. So the number one tip, just like when you build a house, you build a building, you can have a Ferrari, but if the frame is bent on the Ferrari, how fast is that going to go around the race course? If your spine doesn't work properly, everything else is moot. You have to have a spine that articulates properly, your shoulders articulate properly, your hips articulate properly. And if that happens, you're going to save yourself a lot of problems in terms of use injuries and pain that just doesn't go away. So that's my number one advice, is pay attention to your spine and work up from there.
So you wouldn't give in to the attitude of a lot more is going to give you a lot more from what you're saying. No, target it.
If your spine doesn't articulate properly, you can't load your body properly. You're going to get injured. And, if you can't bend down properly, if you can't squat properly, if you can't throw, if you have impingements, there's all sorts of things that Dr. Gutman probably has seen hundreds and hundreds and thousands of patients that have talked to him about, I can't move this properly, this doesn't work properly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And the majority of it, I promise you, relates back to the spine. And I had a full hip replacement in 2000 due to a bike accident, and I've lived it. I know it. So that's the number one thing I tell my son, is focus on that. Make sure that your spine articulates properly, your hips articulate properly, and you build up from there.
Excellent. And last question for you. How do you have the discussion with the non-athlete who knows they have to get healthier? Because maybe they've had a scare, maybe they've had an accident, maybe they know their spine isn't working. How do you have the dialogue with someone like that, John, and bring Immunical into the discussion? Or do you bring Immunical explicitly into the discussion? What would that be like if I called you up and said, hey, John, I know you know a lot about this. How do I get started? What do I do? What would be the advice you'd give me?
First of all, I wouldn't talk about exercise. I would talk about movement, how we move, because everything we do on God's great earth is a form of movement. And you know, when we train athletes, if you train a golfer, if you train a goalie, the way they do that is they study the way the goalie moves, and then they replicate that in the gym or wherever, and think of all the different ways we can move. And if you look at the scientific literature, it's really crystal clear that as we age, we can do less because we do less. So the key thing is to find a way to move without injuring yourself, to retain that form of movement. Now, the two things working against us, as Dr. Droge will tell you, and Dr. Gutman will tell you, that as I say, Dr. Droge was an expert in the area, that after the fourth decade of life, there's some things that happen to us. And in unhealthy aging, it happens quicker than in healthy aging. But one of the key ones is this loss of muscle mass. And we're subjected to gravity our whole life. And so it's very difficult to do some of those movements as you get older because you get weaker. And the great thing about Immunical, as we've shown in 2 different studies, Immunical affects physical performance and muscular strength. So if you can maintain that muscular strength, that allows you to continue to do those movements. And that allows you, as I say, a much better quality of life, because in extreme cases where we lose muscle mass and become frail, along with that goes balance, and then you get hip breaks in the hip, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So don't think of it in terms of exercise, think it in terms of movement and how you move, how well you move, and retaining the capacity to move over time.
Excellent, John. So I know I've told you my mantra. I'm using my body up rather than letting it rust away. And I think that's very fitting as we conclude this short interview, but always so insightful with you. I thank you so much. And I can see a lot of head shaking in the audience. You always resonate so profoundly and so intelligently. But you actually found this study, and I think it's a great segue into Dr. Gutman's talk today. Pretty timely study, pretty recent, University of Arkansas. Did you have any comments on this before I introduce Dr. Gutman?
I think we should save this for Dr. J, and I'd love to hear his comments on it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, without further ado then, and further to say, I want to thank you, John. Mulson, don't go away, and bring up Dr. Gutman to talk with us about something I have found fascinating since I first learned about it. And I think you're really going to want to take a few notes on this. Dr. Gutman, welcome.
I've been having great fun watching y'all. That's fantastic. And thanks, John. I've known John for over a quarter of a century, but every time I hear him, I learn something new. And so thanks, John, and thank you, Nancy. That was a really very good, eye-opening presentation that you gave us before. So I'm going to do something it seems like it's a little bit different, but it's going to be more of the same, and you'll see how this all ties together. Okay, so let's see. It looks like, Nancy, you're showing a slide of epigenetics.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to share your screen, Dr. Gutman?
I'm gonna try and get my screen going here.
Okay, great.
Okay, it should be popping up any minute now. There.
It's there.
You guys seeing that?
Yes, I do. Hopefully our
Yeah.
audience does as well. Yes, head shakes.
Okay, great. So, you know, we're talking about this word epigenetics, and for most people, this is kind of new. Um, but this is absolutely going to be the next big thing in medicine. I think Randy earlier on in the program today talked about exponential growth. Well, when we look at medicine and science, there are periods where we have exponential growth. They're rare, but they happen. And when they do happen, it generally is a sign of a very big shift in the way that we work and the way that we think and the way that we take care of ourselves. When we look at epigenetics, this all started not that long ago. You all remember these great promises of we're going to decode our DNA, we're going to decode the genome, and it took us years and years, but now it's picking up at a rate that is so hard to keep track of. And we've learned so much. We've learned so much just by being able to peer in at our genetic code, determine where in the world our ancestors came from, looking at our predisposition to diseases. And I think that the big shift took place when we discovered that it wasn't just the genetic code that sat inside of the nucleus of our cell. It wasn't just this DNA strand, but the DNA strand, we could make changes to the way the code was expressed. So the big switch over here is that we can take control of our own genes. We're going to see in the next 5 or 10 years the new introduction of personalized medicine, whereby we can determine somebody's genetic code, but in addition, how to play with that code so we can make sure that they're getting nutrition tailored to their needs, that they get the medication tailored to their needs. And some people are going to have to be doing more exercise, and some people are going to be having to do less exercise, and some people are going to be having to eat more fruits and vegetables. So this is, to me, a spectacular paradigm shift, and I hate to use that cliche, but get ready for what's coming. So epigenetics, epi means on top of. So on top of our genes, there are these little structures that can help the way our genetic code is expressed. We can actually turn on or off specific genes in our DNA. How does this work? Well, if we look at DNA itself, every single one of our cells contains the same blueprint. It contains the same blueprint. But why is it that things turn out to look differently even if these cells have the same code? I mean, we look at a nerve cell, we look at a blood cell, we look at an intestinal cell. They're all dramatically different, but containing the same blueprint. What is it that makes them turn out differently? And what makes these cells look differently from each other is that they have these little epigenetic switches that make that code turn on or off. I'll give you an example. And I find that analogies, although they're not perfect, sometimes paint the picture. So there are people that work as DJs. and they show up to a party. And in the old days, they used to show up with a stack of records, and then it was a bunch of CDs and vinyls, or now they come with an MP3 player, or they've got it on their iPhone. But what they have is a playlist. They have a playlist that they have put together so they can play their songs to the people at the party. Now, what happens when the party gets dull? They select certain songs that are a little more upbeat and get people up and dancing. What happens when it gets a little later on in the evening and people want to be a little bit more romantic? They'll play slower dance music that you can actually hold your partner and get more intimate. What happens if somebody brings the DJ a bottle of beer and they get another bottle of beer and they get a little drunk? Music may change. Or worst case scenario, somebody puts in front of them a couple lines of cocaine and they get really high. Clearly, that can affect the music that that person is playing, either in a good way or in a bad way, or just in a different way. The person has the same playlist, but it's going to be expressed differently. Now, we have the same playlist, we have the same blueprints for our genes, but we express them differently depending on the situation. And this is where epigenetics come in. Now, you look at all of these factors, look at things like the microbiome and social interactions, and all of those things that you showed earlier on, Nancy, are the things that influence our life. These things will affect the way that you express your genetic code. Now, John had brought up this article as a segue between his talk about exercise and my talk about epigenetics, and it was looking at exercise. The use of exercise can positively affect the outcome of how we express our genes. If we exercise, we could turn on manifestations that come out as better strength, longer life, better cardiac function, and it's more than just a physiological thing, it's actually a genetic thing. And what's even crazier about this is even crazier. This sounds like science fiction, but it's not. This can be passed on to your kids. This can be passed on to your kids. Let's look at this one here, psychological state. There was a great epigenetic study done here in Montreal. Now, John will remember this. Back a good number of years ago, we had an ice storm in Montreal. I don't know, a lot of the people further south don't know what an ice storm is, but essentially the city became completely frozen over. We lost electricity for many, many days. I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks. I don't remember. I just remember it was really tough. So the city was frozen and in the dark. And when we went back and looked at the many women who got pregnant during that time, this is another very interesting phenomenon. When there seems to be blackouts, there seems to be more relationships going on between man and wife, or whatever relationship is, leading to pregnancies. So they looked at the pregnancies that took place, consummating the pregnancy, where the sperm meets the egg, during the ice storm, and followed these kids for several years later after they were born and into their childhood years. And there was a clear correlation that the kids that were conceived during the ice storm, during this period of huge mental stress, at higher levels of things like autism, ADHD, and other psychological problems. These were epigenetic tags that were switched on because during the mother's pregnancy, she was exposed to a stressful situation. And the same thing holds place for your food, for your diet, for the state of the bacteria in your gut. If you're going to be eating well, or if you're going to be smoking cigarettes, all of these will have an effect on the outcome of your own genetic expression. And I need to make you feel a little bit guilty, not just your own, but potentially your kids as well. So all of these can be turned on or off. I mean, look at a single little nutritional addition. Bumblebees, they're all carrying the same genetics. They pick one little bumblebee and feed them royal jelly. That's the only difference in nutrition. And what happens is that bumblebee turns out to be another queen bee, just on the basis of a nutritional modification. This is a much larger bee. This bee is physiologically different. Well, y'all know what I'm saying here. And you truly, when we look at you are what you eat, this is the absolute truth. There are other things that come into play when we look at turning these genes on and off, what we call epigenetic modifications. A lot of it have to do with a biochemical process called methylation. I'm not going to get into the biochemistry of methylation because it can get pretty dry. And the reason why I bring this up, though, is because if you're going to be looking at epigenetics, you're going to hear about methylation as one of the major ways to switch genes on or off. Glutathione is one of the most critical controllers of methylation. Glutathione, as we are seeing now in the literature that's coming out, is one of the key controllers in epigenetic expression. So what does that mean? Well, it's always good to tie these talks together to the business at hand. And of course, we're talking about Immunocal. Oh, and by the way, we need to look at our boosters as well, because this is specifically why I designed them, because of their ability to turn on one of the most important epigenetic switches called the NRF2 gene. And by turning on the NRF2 gene, which by the way is called our survival gene, it's called our survival gene is because under periods of stress, hopefully we can survive these stressors by having NRF2 turned on. And that what that NRF2 does, it raises all of your antioxidants, and in particular, the reason why it caught my eye, it raises glutathione levels. So we look at this whole spectrum of things that is going to ultimately affect our genes, but we need to add a couple things to this picture over here, and there you go. We have products in our hand where we can influence our health and potentially the health of our progeny. So there you go. I just find this absolutely fascinating, and more than that, absolutely pragmatic and a practical thing that we can all do.
Dr. Gutman, thank you so much, as always, for your really brilliant insights. And I want to thank John Mulson as well. It's like, you know, medical doctor, traditional, complementary, integrative medicine meets elite athleticism and joins with public health to do these health talks that we really hope are beneficial, and you take away in your pocket some really golden things. And if I may just summarize, working a little bit backwards from Dr. Gutman's brilliant discussion of epigenetics in a very short time. And believe me, I've sat through day-long seminars on the topic. It is fascinating, it's complex, but it is that next illumination of when we ask that question, what does it take to be healthy? right? It's like saying, how do we cure obesity? When you look at obesity now through an epigenetics lens, you may change your perspective dramatically because culture, ancestry, heredity, prior trauma history. Maybe this explains why some people kind of never can get out of, some feelings that they've been carrying all their lives, which is why we need these new insights into helping people achieve their health spot, John Mulson, on that health continuum, whether they're a world-class athlete or they're a mom who has 3 kids and 2 jobs, trying to get on this bus, if you will, in pursuit of health. So we've got a lot of other things to think about here. State of health and achieving it perfectly is much more complicated than appears. Glutathione, controller of the methylation that Dr. Gutman spoke about, in a simple way, but in a brilliant way. And I think you can all imagine this process that happens in each and every one of us. And now the true benefits of the booster products in addition to having Immunical on board in our bodies. So hopefully we've given you all a lot to think about. I want you to think back to, because Dr. Gutman, you just said this, let's link these together too, right? We've talked about the exposome as well in looking at the effects of toxins on people. Exposome meets epigenetics. There's an interesting corollary, right? So medicine is always seeking, this is why we do research. That's the value of research, is to continually to peer in to these very complex health issues and try to help humans ease suffering, terminate disease where we can, alleviate it where we can, and to help people have better health strategies. So Dr. Gutman, you are a prize. John Mulson, you're also a prize, and all of you are prizes, and it is a privilege to spend this time with all of you. Thank you so much for giving us your ears and your hearts and your energy, and keep helping people get on that bus to the pursuit of health. Thank you, John Solider. Back to you.
Well, the less popular of the Solider kids to John Mulson and Jimmy Gutman will take us forward from here. Not all seriousness. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Dr. Jimmy. Thank you, John. Great stuff as always. And listen, great information. That's why these Zoom-taculars are put together. We want it to be marketing. We want it to be science. We want it to be legitimacy. We want things that you can take home with you to use. And you know what? The last part of today, and please stick around. These people have been here for 20 plus years building the foundation of this company. And let me say this. When I listen to Dr. Gutman and John, and I know those two guys know that they stand on the shoulders of giants. Dr. Kongshaven, Dr. Droga, and of course, Dr. Bunos. And we all stand with them on those shoulders when we go to work every day to bring this product out there to the marketplace. So with that, though, it's taken a lot of great marketing people to take this product to market. So we got a few of them that we want to recognize today. And I want you to hear from them and hear their stories and benefit by their stories, because you can be like them and have an income from this company, not for a year, not for a few years, but for decades, if you follow some of what's being taught here today. So without any further ado, let me turn it over. First of all, no particular order here, but let's just start with Foster Olusu in Toronto. Foster, you're on.
Thank you, John, and great speakers. I must say that we have listened to great speakers this afternoon, this morning, depending on where you are. I'm going to steal a line quickly from Wally. He said that he was addicted to freedom. And perhaps that will probably help me to talk a little bit about how far I have come personally. Originally from Ghana, so I came to Canada because of that freedom in the mid 80s, and that was my North American dream journey. And then I got a job, and the first job naturally was a job in a plastic factory, night shift working in a factory and doing packaging stuff. That was in Montreal. And I realized that wasn't going to fulfill my North American dream. And of course, I didn't speak French. So I decided to relocate to English speaking territory. And that's how I ended up in Toronto. Fast forward, I landed a job and I worked my way up. But there was something fascinating about the sales profession as I saw. Some of my friends that joined this call earlier, most of them are professional accountants, so they probably can relate to where I'm going with this. Whether you're preparing payroll or you're doing something that involves numbers, you can see who is getting a big chunk of that. And most of the sales professionals who were not, let's say, in upper management, they had a base salary and they also get bonuses on some of the stuff they were doing. The unfortunate thing is it was a one-time payout. So when I saw the network marketing opportunity, I saw a real deal where you're doing the same thing in the sales field, where literally every customer that you bring to a particular company, you own that business for the life of that customer. In this particular case with Epigenetics, every single customer that I brought to Epigenetics, I'm getting paid on not just the first month, but month after month. Some of you on this call heard Doug Leclerc, who shared his story earlier. I introduced him to this program, to this great opportunity, to this great business. And for the past 20-something years, I'm getting paid on that. So literally, I can state that I joined Epigenetics in 1999. It's been 23 good years. My, let's say professional working years started in 1984. So I've been working, let's say, for 38 years. Out of these 38 years, 23 has been with Epigenetics. The first 15 was regular job. But I can also tell you that being an employee for somebody, and I've shared this before, so it's worth mentioning. I said, I was broke as a joke. It wasn't funny. I was broke, living from paycheck to paycheck. Looking where we are today, John talked about longevity. So you've heard people on this call talk about their 20 years, in my case, 23 years. And Epigenetics has paid me since February of 1999 to this day. The reason why I was able to literally walk away from my full-time job and went full-time with Epigenetics, as some of you know, I wrote a book called How to Fire Your Boss and Hire Yourself. That was not in my initial plan. But what network marketing, particularly Epigenetics, has allowed me is the opportunity to walk away from a full-time career. And it's been more than 20 years that I haven't worked for anybody. So now when we look at the impact that it has had, not on my personal life, of course, you've heard about Immunocar, we talk about the great benefit. I call it the health assurance. The financial part though, I'm looking at where we are today, the impact that it's had, let's say on my immediate family. I am blessed with children that because of this business, they've been able to have good education through private education being the foundation. I've also been able to help relatives back home. If you're an immigrant, you know that, when you earn your check here abroad, some must go home. We don't have the same social infrastructure where, the government will look after people. So we get to support our extended families. The Epigenetics checks have allowed me to be that generous to help some of my, nephews and nieces to even get the education as far as their master's degree. But where we are today, when I look at the impact, not only what has happened, but what is happening in my own children's life. Today, some of my kids have their own account with Epigenetics. They were born into this business. How many professions do we know, whether you're a dentist or a lawyer, that you can literally hand your child your particular job and say, take it over? Today, if I can say this in conclusion, when I look at those of us here in Canada, some of the incomes that comes in once you hit 60 going, there's something we call Canada Pension Plan, or we call it CPP. And this CPP has three categories, how long you paid into the plan. how much you paid into the plan, and at what age do you choose to withdraw money? So put this in perspective as we try to paint a picture about the residual income power in network marketing. Today, depending on how much you contributed and your age, we have people receiving less than $1,000 a month from Canada Pension Plan. Well, you heard earlier, we cannot give you, an exact figure, but you can go online and Google, let's say, some of the top income earners in network marketing, the top 50, the top 100. My point is, what some people earn in a month from Canada Pension, okay, in network marketing, in some cases, is tenfold. In some cases, it's 100-fold. And I'm so glad that I made a decision, because my first exposure to this industry was in 1989. So that is 33 years ago. But with Epigenetics, it's been 23. And sometimes I go on by saying it's been 23 great years. Why? Because from the day that I earned my first check with this amazing company, it hasn't stopped. So it gives me what I call security. It gives me the peace of mind. Every single person that spoke today have become a friend, a lifetime friend. So if this opportunity can work for an immigrant kid like myself from Ghana, West Africa, you can too. The next 2 years, the next 5 years could be your opportunity to create your own Canada Pension Plan, especially if you're a Canadian. I don't know how it's called in the US, so I would not even try to name it, but I am so grateful for all the people who made the investment, including John Mulson, of course, and Dr. Gutman, whom I have known for the past 23 years, a great teacher, and John and Keith, who are my direct mentors in this business. They are the pillars that stood tall before this thing had a trickle-down effect. So I am grateful, and I know that my future is secure. Back to you, John.
Okay, great. Thank you, Foster. And let's go to Dr. White, Dr. Barry White in Barrie, Ontario. Barrie is so famous.
That.
It shows how good the product works.
I'm looking for longevity in this process, as well as keeping my mind clear. Start with my son. My son was delivering pizza, and he left my card with the person that got the pizza. And out of that, because it had a doctor on the front, they thought I should make a good candidate for a new company and called Epigenetics. And so I got invited to go to headquarters. And I particularly wasn't interested in the business at that point. I was in another network marketing company, not necessarily very successful, just, muddling around. But I thought that my future was secure in terms of money and retirement. And I was at that age in which is the transition, 59, in which retirement was there upon me. As it turns out, the company I was with, no longer with us at all, it disappeared. But in Montreal, I discovered then the product, which I, because it got a good result for me, and I was using it as a product for other people who needed it. Then, of course, it started producing money. Well, now that made it interesting. And potential choices that I ever made in my life, because if I'd carried on with what I thought was secure, nothing of that was secure, because everything changes, inflation and all those kind of things. So in the process of discovering or helping other people, I discovered that I could help myself financially. And part of my whole aspect, why did I not do well in other companies? That was always a question. Was I not suited for network marketing? Was there something wrong there? What I discovered with Epigenetics was a group of people who cared about other people. The part was training. I wasn't just recruited for something. I was trained, told how to do it, showed how to do it, and as a result, found that the natural, characteristics within myself were only possible when other people were around me. And the other part about Immunotech, this is the first time I've ever found a cluster of people that are friends as well as trainers and not just salespeople. They care about who I am and they care about the process. So that fit my personality, wanting to care for other people. And Immunotech was my family. It became a family of people who supported and did that process. So at the result of all this, yes, I did presentations all over Ontario and New York State and down to Connecticut and so on, and built a substantial business in the process. And one of my other characters, my wife loves to give away money. And we've been able to do that. When you don't have any money, giving away $10 is a big deal. But when you have considerable amount, you can give much more and enrich other people's lives as well. So the part of the friends we've made in terms of Immunotech, there are more people that I consider friends now as a result of my Immunotech connections and people I've met and so on than I have in the rest of my other part of my life. So the whole process of a new family, a new series of friends, enriched with a retirement income that will support me. Otherwise, I'd be in deep trouble if I carried on with what I thought. So this was the most advantageous decision I've made in my financial career. Okay, back to you, John.
Okay, Barry, thank you so much. And let's hear from a woman. Hey, Janiece Miller in beautiful, probably really nice and warm, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes, but I'm not that warm. Yes. Hi, John. How you doing today?
Good, Janiece. How are you?
Amazing, amazing. And I'm grateful, very grateful. Been on the products for over, I would say, 24 years before I even thought I ever needed the products. So, but I was blessed because a good friend of ours put his hand out and said, Janiece, come along. And before that, I was stuck in a world that I didn't like, and I really don't think anybody could understand how somebody could hate a job that they were doing, but put a smile on their face every day, and they showed up. And that was me. Some people said, Janiece, you are great at what you do. You must really love your job. And I smiled and I said, I hate my job. And I drive home the long 45-minute drive minimum and hate my job, hate my life, everything. And the only thing that kept me going is I had 2 wonderful sons. And I had a husband, but he was not answering my need to be a stay-at-home mom. So I had to set myself free by being an entrepreneur through Immunotech as one of my greatest vehicles and finds. And I was able to build a business from my home and be a single stay-at-home mom. And I was able to make my float. I was able to, if you don't understand that terminology, cover all my bills, be debt-free from home with 2 boys, 3 and 5 at the time, raising them and shushing them in the background as I had phone calls. So, did you have a question more than that?
No, just love the story.
Yeah, so the great news is by showing the boys by example how not necessarily hard work, but determined work. Because I worked hard my whole life. I worked a full-time job in the casino and had a dealing school. So I had a business and a job, and I still wasn't happy because it wasn't the answer. So now, fast forward, I taught them, I stayed home, I caretake them, I make sure, the information that went in their heads was good information. I didn't let them watch random TV shows that other people might have if I wasn't present, because I know what goes on behind other doors. So I made sure I was there. And then my sons, one of them had to go to college because he was a straight A student, and that was his determination. But the other son took after me. He took after me in entrepreneurship, and he became an entrepreneur at 16. And by 19, he ranked up in one company to the top. and because he took after his mom, just go for it. And in this fast forward today, both my sons are working together as a business partnership. They are blessed. They are the #1 shoe cleaner on the planet, on Amazon and anywhere else you go, even in Canada. And I'm just so grateful that they saw the light, that it's better to work for yourself than for other people that are trying to dictate your life, and when you can go to work and when you can sleep and when you can have a day off. And I tell you, I'm so grateful. I have not held a job in 30 years.
Wow. Great story, Janiece. Thank you so much for sharing. And Mr. McNabb, I believe, is with us from up somewhere in snowy Canada. Doug, where are you?
Well, John, how are you?
Good, Doug. How you doing?
Good. I'd like to thank you and Keith for the great job you guys are doing, putting these events on a regular basis. Means a lot to the field. We sure appreciate your efforts. I won't take up too much time. We've had some fantastic speakers today. I got involved in the network marketing industry back in 1993. And I guess I had a knack for it. I found it, with a little application of sweat equity, you could get yourself to 10 grand a month. And I did that, changed my life. Previous to that, I was a postmaster. My family owned a summer resort. So I wasn't exactly a stranger to self-employment. I grew up with the sounds of a busy business running around me all the time. Up in beautiful Haliburton County in north of Toronto, the land of lakes and rivers, and lots of wilderness and animals. And I proudly call myself a country boy. I have all my life. And I got on with the post office up here. I was like early 20s. I was a postmaster and really enjoyed that occupationally, but wasn't really cut out to work for anybody else. Way too much entrepreneurial spirit flowing through my veins. And my mom and dad were both self-employed, and nobody in my family ever wanted a job. So network marketing suited me perfectly. And I love people, and I like to communicate. So I shared my story with a lot of people, and pretty soon built a good sized team. And then along came Immunotech. And of course, anyone who's been exposed to this product knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the most powerful and important nutritional product of all time. Now, I know I'm talking to the choir here, but when we listen to Dr. Salini and Dr. Gutman and John Mulson and the various other medical experts that support our product, there's absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that we have got ourselves involved in something really unique, powerful. So it's easy to stay attached to it. I got my first check from the company. I signed up in September of 1997, got my first check in October of 1997, and I've got a check from this company every single month since. It'll be 25 years this September. So for those of you who are newer in the company, look at that. I get unbelievable. The check never bounced. The product was always delivered on time. And those are the things that really let you know what a stable and powerful structure you're involving yourself with. And it's important to know that, because we do this. I've done a few other opportunities. I've drifted around the industry a little bit. Actually, this is the 5th company that I've built to over 10,000 a month in income. So the system itself works. But the reason that I'm not with those other companies still is also about the industry itself, because some companies aren't that well organized. Their products aren't that well thought out. Their management team isn't that strong. That's what makes Immunotech so powerful today. Not only the product, but the management team, your upline support, every single aspect of a rock solid opportunity is here today. And Immunotech research, Immunotech Inc., has literally changed my life. And not only the great reward you get from sharing such a powerful product with people, but the ability to build a team. And if you work hard and diligently, there's absolutely no doubt you're going to be able to build yourself a serious, long-term, stable income. Now at the stage I'm at, I love this company and I love to continue to share it. But, we've been able to build ourselves a nice home on 600 acres. The dreams that we have in our lives, are so important. And to have a vehicle that allows you to fulfill those dreams is you know, it's not that easy to find. And if you can find it, and I believe Immunotech is that vehicle for many people to achieve their dreams. I mean, I'm sitting here with we don't have a huge home, but it's a nice home. It's on 600 acres. Something I've always dreamed about was building my house on 600 acres. And what a great time through the pandemic to have property to wander on, because a lot of us have been forced into a little more isolation than we would like. And then work a home-based business from the comfort of your own home and your own office, controlling your own time. I mean, there is so much to be grateful for every aspect of this business. So that's my story. The last 25 years condensed into a few sentences, but behind it all has been the strength and power of this product, and also a company that really does care about your success. And I can say my wife and I are so grateful for everything that Immunotech's done for us. Thanks for having me on the call, John.
Okay, Doug, great. Thanks, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Janiece. Thanks, Foster. What did I miss here? Thanks, Doug LeClaire earlier. Thanks, Sandy Walper earlier. And I haven't forgotten my last speaker here. Who did I miss? Oh, Barry, of course. And hopefully he made the call. I talked to him yesterday. I think he made it. I hope so. And that's Jim Spencer from Florida. Jim, you with us? Only once. Okay, I guess Jim didn't make it, unfortunately. But anyway, folks, just kind of to wrap up with everything that you just heard from these folks, building a business is important. Building a business is fun. Building a business is something that becomes part of your personal legacy for you and your family. When I started this venture now 25 years ago, no idea it was going to be 25 years later I'd still be doing this, still be out there talking about Immunical and all that kind of stuff. But I knew that the possibility existed, if for no other reason, the fact that the product even then had so much science to support it. And Dr. Bunos was such a how do you even describe the guy? I mean, beyond brilliant man. I mean, my first meeting with him, as some of you know, was essentially one where he shared the fact that he had just come back from Italy. And when he came back from Italy, I thought he'd been on vacation. I knew he was Italian. And I quizzed him. I said, Doc, why were you in Italy? You were visiting family, or what were you doing? He said, no. And I'll never forget this. And I don't want you guys to forget this either. If there's nothing else you ever hear me say or talk about with this company or this product, is this. I was at the Vatican studying what Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, had to say about the human immune system. Now just think about that for a moment. Hippocrates wrote in Latin. So Bunos was reading him in Latin, the medical textbooks, those ancient medical textbooks about what Dr. Hippocrates had to say about the human immune system. And you seldom meet people in your life at that level, but I knew that this was something special. I didn't realize how special, but here we are 25 years later. And the best part is we're just getting started. Okay, you're in 12 countries. There's, 165 countries, I think, represented in the United Nations as we speak, some crazy number like that. So our window of opportunity is ahead of us, even though the people that you met in the last part of the call and earlier in the call have been here for a long time. We're just getting started. So I'm going to thank you all for your time. I'm going to turn it to Keith Hooper and let him have the last word, because along with Sandy Walper, Keith Hooper and Sandy Walper, those two people, the longest serving Immunotech distributors on the planet. So Keith, let me turn it to you, my friend.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Dr. Gutman. Thank you, John Mulson. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Doug LeClaire and Foster Wusu. Thank you, Doug McNabb. Thank you, Dr. White. Thank you, Janiece. Thank you, all of you that are here, because it is about, taking this legacy, taking this gift that we have. Make no mistake about it. Immunical is a gift. Now that's the good news. The bad news is, once you've been given this gift, you become responsible. So you've all accepted the responsibility to share this gift with others. See, the good news of Immunical is the more you share it, the more gifts you receive. The more you share it, the more gifts you receive. We're looking forward to what's coming out from the company, what Mauricio is doing with Randy Gage and Jaime and the stuff that's coming forward with that. So with that, thank you all for being here. We appreciate you dearly. You're all part of, as Dr. White talks about, our Immunotech family. Thank you all and have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.